Alright, so today I'm going to be watching the Art of Fighting anime, the English dub version. I've already watched the two Fate of Fury movies, and I've talked about how horrible the voice acting and dialogue was in the first Fate of Fury film. Apparently this is far worse, so I don't know what I'm about to be in for, but let's see how bad it is. Okay, so we begin the movie in Southtown. The first thing we immediately see is a cat's ass as it's crawling away from the camera, and then we have a guy sort of chasing behind it, and then Robert shows up to start making fun of the guy, and that's when it dawns on me, is this supposed to be Ryo? And I immediately noticed that he's wearing the same martial arts gi as Ryo in the Art of Fighting games, and it's him. Just for context, this is what the Ryo character looks like. Also, I will note already, Robert's voice acting may be some of the worst I've heard in a fighting game adaptation yet, so yeah, this is already turning out to be far worse than the Fate of Fury movies.
Hey, what's going on? You taking the cat out for a little walk?
Also, he's talking to him on the roof of the building even though the car is I don't know how many stories below him. So Ryo's falling from the building and Robert sort of kicks him out of the air to stop him from falling. I guess that makes sense. So now Robert is helping Ryo get his cat, and the cat jumps inside of somebody's apartment. Robert immediately starts going through people's stuff. He also gets thirsty, so he decides to start drinking scotch, like that makes any sense. Also, I just happened to notice this random deep purple poster in the background. So Robert steps on the cat's tail and the cat attacks him. And once he looks outside the window, he sees King leaning against his car. He hits on her and then she immediately drives off. I guess he forgot that he was dating Ryo's sister, but in any event.
And what is your name, little lady? Would you like to take a little drive down to the beach?
Then this guy shows up in the apartment with some guys chasing him with guns, and he starts swinging at them and attacking them like they're not holding guns in front of him. Eventually one decides to shoot him and kills him, and Jack gets mad at him for actually killing the guy, which I don't know what he was supposed to do in that situation. They tell Robert and Ryo to give them a gem back, and they have no idea what they're talking about, obviously. So of course, as these things do in these movies, a fight breaks out. Ryo gets the cat back and they decide to run away by jumping through the window, and Robert speeds off. I also got a note, for this to be filmed in the early 90s, it really looks like it was made in the 80s still. Just for context, the Street Fighter anime came out a year after this, and I believe this was around the same time as the two Fate of Fury movies that don't look nowhere near this bad. Or I shouldn't say bad, but more like dated. So Jack reports back to the evil crime lair, I guess, that he couldn't get the gem. Somehow King has information on Ryo and Robert already, even though she just saw them today. They already know where they live and where they hang out at, and Jack, assuming that they have the gem, is going to go and find them. She also finds information on Ryo's sister Yuri. Obviously, having a vague idea of the Art of Fighting franchise, I know what's coming next as far as Yuri's concerned. So Ryo returns the cat to its owner, but apparently he returned the wrong cat, so he's not getting paid. We cut to Yuri walking home from school as King follows her. Robert watches a news story on TV about the Eye of Sirius, apparently, that was stolen. Apparently that's the gem that everybody's looking for. And we cut to this annoying lieutenant who vows to get the gem back. His voice acting might be worse than Robert's.
Leave, but I, Sado, promise to find it. Give me that.
And because Ryo doesn't have the money to pay his bills, they cut the power off, so there goes to watching TV. So Jack and his men break into the actual house, looking for Ryo and Robert. Once again, they have guns, but nobody fires and shoots anybody. Oh my goodness, and these fight scenes are terrible. He sure is doing a lot of damage to the wall behind Ryo. I will admit though, the soundtrack sounds like something straight out of Cowboy Bebop.
That's not a stretcher.
These two idiots jump kick past each other. After Robert breaks a broom handle over Jack's head, Ryo then lays about 50 punches at his face. I don't know why he just stands there and takes it. As Ryo then kicks him off of a balcony. I don't know how Jack survives this. So the cops show up and of course they arrest Robert and Ryo. The lieutenants talk to them and tell them that Jack is working for Mr. Big and he wants to know what the two boys know about the actual stolen gemstone. I don't get why everybody just assumes that these two have it. But the lieutenant is told to let the two guys go. So Ryo and Robert head back to the karate dojo. As a Mack truck heads down the street, completely demolishes Robert's car and then crashes through a building. That was a nice Ferrari. There's a letter inside of the truck that's an invitation for Robert and Rio. Apparently Mr. Big has Yuri kidnapped. I still can't get over that this is Rio. Why the choice to make his hair brown like he's supposed to have blonde, whatever. So now we cut to the casino, I guess owned by Mr. Big, where King works at. So Mr. Big shows up to confront Yuri. God, even her voice acting is awful. I think every single character has awful dialogue in this anime.
Wait and see. My brother will get you.
I'm not even 30 minutes in and this is already taking the cake for horrible SNK fighting dialogue. So Robert shows up at the casino as Rio's swinging around the building on a rope. So King joins Robert at the bar. Robert immediately starts flirting with King, once again completely ignoring the fact that he's supposed to be dating Yuri in this anyways. So Robert promises King that he has the Eye of Sirius. If he does, I have no idea where he got it from. He has to be lying, I guess. King brings Robert to meet Mr. Big. So Mr. Big threatens to kill Yuri if Robert doesn't give him the diamond. And Robert takes out a grenade. Didn't see this coming. Everybody starts laughing because apparently only Robert and King is in that room. Everything else is bulletproof glass, so I guess the grenade isn't gonna blow them up somehow. Can bulletproof glass stop a grenade explosion? I have to believe that's wrong. Doesn't matter, Rio breaks in anyways. He and King start fighting. This is a lot better animation, by the way. God, this dialogue.
Rio!
Yuri, you're safe.
Anyways, Robert frees Yuri just in time for the police to swing in. The lieutenant is laughing like the Joker. They try to bulldoze their way into the room. Oh my God, what is this movie? He says everybody in the casino's under arrest. I don't understand why. I don't know what crime they've committed. Mr. Big snatches Yuri. I don't know how he got her in the first place, but whatever. So the bad guys escape as King drops the grenade in the room. Robert hits the floor with Rio. Somehow this saves them. And Mr. Big tells them to come by his house by 8 p.m. the next day or the girl's gonna die. I'd just like to point out that he didn't say a.m. or p.m., but we'll leave that alone. Then the lieutenant threatens to kill Robert and Rio. So we cut back to Rio's powerless apartment where Robert's going to have a drink, of course. He sees all the ice is melted. He figures out that the diamond has to be in the ice tray of the old apartment. He said the ice was frozen even though the power was off, which is actually a pretty good observation. They go back to the apartment and wait for the ice to melt. So somehow they remember that he threw the ice out the window and that the diamond would have to be in the ice. And somehow they find it on the ground. Now they head to Mr. Big's house. The saxophone in this movie is outrageous, by the way. Mr. Big lets them in and suddenly about 1 million police cars show up, riding on both sides of the road, by the way. Suddenly one of Mr. Biggs' men fires a rocket or a missile of some kind into a mountain that actually causes a barrier for the police to not be able to get through. So I guess he stopped them from being able to get to Mr. Biggs' mansion. And if this movie couldn't be any more random, Robert asks Mr. Big for a drink. So Rio hands over the diamond. Mr. Big's gonna escape anyways with Yuri even though they got the diamond. Mr. Big's keeping Yuri to blackmail the Garcia Foundation, so he's gonna hit up Robert's family, I guess. Rio gets away and somehow uses the diving board to jump onto the helicopter. Can't make this up. I also would like you to notice how Robert is swinging on the bottom of the helicopter in this scene. So we get a brief helicopter fight as Rio throws, I believe his name is John, outside of the helicopter. He then saves Yuri as Mr. Big accidentally drops the diamond out of the helicopter, the one thing he was trying to protect, but in any event. Rio and Yuri jump out of the helicopter, then the helicopter falls into the pool itself and explodes, cause why not? King jumps out of the pool and Robert challenges her to a fight, and he tells her if he beats her in a fight, he gets her phone number. I'm not gonna lie, Robert's funny for all the wrong reasons in this movie. These two have arguably the worst fight scene I've seen in an anime in a very long time, by the way. Then Mr. Big suddenly appears and tries to choke out Rio, so the final fight begins. So we get heat on the baby faces by putting Robert and Rio down on the ground early on. Then it's time for them to make their comeback. Robert puts down King with a kick to the stomach. Then she's unconscious as Rio kicks Mr. Big into the pool. the toxic pool, I'm assuming, by the helicopter explosion, as the diamond falls out of his eye socket, as we get another explosion from the helicopter. Mr. Big was still in the pool, by the way, when this happened the second time. Police promptly arrive late, as Yuri gets snatched up yet again. This girl couldn't have worse awareness of her surroundings. But the lieutenant shows up to save her, and she's reunited with Rio and Robert. Hopefully they can keep her safe for once. And the police round up all of Mr. Biggs' men, and women I should say, as Robert still gets one last attempt in to ask King for a phone number. So we cut back to this cat's ass yet again as Rio's crawling behind it to try. What is this movie? Only now we have Robert and Yuri waiting for him this time. So the cat scratches Rio's face up, and that's how we end this movie. Oh my god. It is entertaining. I didn't cringe as much watching this as I thought I was going to, at least in comparison to the first Fatal Fury movie, but I will say the voice acting is far worse. While there's not as many cringe lines of dialogue like there was in the first Fatal Fury movie, it's still really, really bad. Almost every other line of dialogue that Robert says in this is awful. And he might just be the worst culprit, but I think just about everybody in this entire film is bad at it. That being said, yes, this is bad enough to where I would suggest that any fighting game fan, especially an SNK fighting game fan, should watch it. So, yeah, that's The Art of Fighting.